Hi,
forgot
it's
to
me,
mention that
Daniel
Steel
again.
Hand looks a
I
lot like
finally
Dr.
have decided to
Octopus.
try this
I
again.
had
Hopefully
forgotten to
the
put that
video
in the
editor will
review.
work. I got some other videos that I've done on my phone to work, so hopefully this one will too. We're looking at Mr. Miracle today, the DC character, and he was created by Jack Kirby, and he was created in a bunch of series that Jack Kirby did back in the around 1970 to 1971. This one was that we're looking at today is in 1971, and Jack Kirby, though he created Captain America in 1940, and he also created the more popular Marvel characters, the Fantastic Four, the Hulk, and some others in the 60s. Anyway, he created the now popular DC villain Darkseid in 1970. And he was, funnily enough, Darkseid introduced in a Superman comic series. And it had some other New Gods characters. For those who don't know, there's like this Darkseid lives on the planet Apocalypse, and then there's this planet New Genesis, and this character named Allfather who has a son named Orion who wears a red suit, who, if you're familiar with the Superman 90s cartoon, you might have seen the episode he was in. Anyway, they're New Gods characters. And the thing about Mr. Miracle is he's actually Allfather's son, who was given to Darkseid in the comics, and Darkseid gave his son, who would later become Orion, to Allfather. Yes, comic books are confusing, and they did a different scenario than that in the Superman 90s cartoon. Anyway, Mr. Miracle, also known as Scott Free, he's super strong. He also is got superhuman reflexes, as do everyone on Apocalypse. And his love interest is Big Barda, although she's not in the comic we're looking at today. Anyway, and we'll look at Big Barda another time. But as for now, in my first intro I forgot to mention to Mr. Miracle was, funnily enough, this comic we're looking at today. Yeah, he isn't in much visual media, and funnily enough, a while back when I was watching Justice League through for the first time in years, though I never got through Unlimited, I ended up seeing Mr. Miracle in an episode that had Allfather and took place on New Genesis, funnily enough. I can't remember the name of the episode, but he briefly appears in a cameo there. He didn't actually get a whole episode until Justice League Unlimited, and it's like an older version of himself, not like this comic in that episode. Actually, it wasn't just one episode, sorry, it was 2 episodes. Sorry for making this maybe take longer than it should. Anyway, let's look at Mr. Miracle #1 and see how good this comic is.
So the comic starts off with this young man in a blue suit staring at this guy in a red and yellow outfit with his legs, hands, chest, and neck locked up. He is trying to perform a stunt and says he needs a certain condition to perform it. He also says that he needs his cape removed. His assistant, a little person named Oberon, objects to him performing the stunt. He responds, "There is no need to worry." Then he has Oberon lock him in this wooden shack you see here. He arrogantly says Mr. Miracle can get out of this trap he's designed. Oberon gets a flamethrower out. I am pretty sure it was never legal to own one of those. Then Oberon has set the wooden shack on fire, and the young man I mentioned earlier jumps up and says he must save the man inside. Oberon tells him he must not interfere. Then Mr. Miracle comes out of the wooden shack, and the young man tells Mr. Miracle what he did was amazing. Mr. Miracle tells him he knows how to do things fast in seconds. Then we see Mr. Miracle taking off his mask, and Oberon tells him he was too slow in the stunt. Mr. Miracle tells him he was wrong. He then tells the young man he is indebted to him. We also see Mr. Miracle is an old man with white hair and a white beard who looks like Santa Claus. The young man says he was ineffectual and tells him his name is Scott Free. Then Mr. Miracle laughs hysterically at his name. I suppose it does sound funny. Scott Free says that it has evoked reactions before. He says he grew up in an orphanage where other foundlings were given similar names. Can't say I've heard the word foundlings before. Not really a word most people use now. Scott Free tells Mr. Miracle he must be on his way, but he responds that he wants to stay. Then Oberon says they have some company. It turns out it's monsters from Energang who are there because Mr. Miracle didn't pay some kind of debt. They want to kill him. Then the head gangster puts a gun to Mr. Miracle's head and says he will kill him. Mr. Miracle points out his boss, Steelhand, wouldn't like it. Then Scott Free tells him he is playing too rough. The monster responds by threatening him with said gun. Then Mr. Miracle knocks the head gangster quite a few feet back, and Scott starts fighting with the other gangsters. After knocking some gangsters backwards, he gets grabbed by one of them from behind, but Scott easily throws him backwards. He grabs one of the gangsters' guns and threatens the other gangsters with it. Scott Free then gives the guns to Oberon and then goes up to the head gangster and the other one. He yells at them that they are cheap hoods for ganging up on an old man. Then he knocks their heads together. Then he yells at them they are no match for a young man. He then helps Mr. Miracle up and asks him if he is involved with Energang. He says he is not involved with Energang, but with their division chief Steelhand. And then the next scene is Steelhand being interrupted by one of his lackeys when he is in the middle of his radiation treatment. Spoiler, it's something he has to do because of having had his hand blown off by an evil man with a Tommy gun. Wow. That is so painful there are no words to describe it. Anyway, he got his hand replaced with a steel one. Now I am thinking of Inspector Gadget for some reason. Then, in the next scene, he declares he will take over the job of Mr. Miracle. Then we cut to the house of Mr. Miracle where Scott Free and Mr. Miracle are in the attic of his house talking. Then Scott Free tells Mr. Miracle that he and orphans in general don't have a family. This dialogue makes me feel a bit sad. Anyway, Mr. Miracle then tells Scott his wife died and that his son Ted was killed while serving his country in the Korean War. He says his son liked to assist Oberon in making his acts better. He also mentions his son kept an album of his acts. Then he shows him that album and says that his son came up with the name Mr. Miracle. Then Scott Free says that Ted must have been a fan of Superman. Then Mr. Miracle says he is feeling weak and then mentions rehearsing for the big trap isn't a priority right now. Then mentions when Scott asks about it that Oberon is against it. Then he shows him a poster and says that they had them put up these posters in lots of towns and cities. Then Oberon is mad it was brought up, and Mr. Miracle says that even if he gets out of the chains in time, he may not survive. Going to skip a few scenes and skip to Scott Free after getting chained up by them and then breaking the chains as you see here. They ask how he did it, and he shows them a small cube. He says he was able to use it to cause intense magnetic repulsion. Then he says he got it from people he doesn't know. Said people are from Apokolips, which I mentioned earlier is the planet he is from that Darkseid rules. But we'll talk about Darkseid another time. Anyway, Oberon tells Mr. Miracle that he should use it, but Mr. Miracle is vehemently against it. He says they should worry more about Steelhand who wants to kill them. So then we cut to Steelhand with a sniper. He is having Mr. Miracle killed. It ends up turning out Mr. Miracle, Scott Free, and Oberon are rehearsing for the big trap. and you can see the sniper scope over Mr. Miracle's head. Mr. Miracle thanks Scott for being there. Then we see Oberon is pushing a big giant oval shaped thing towards the trap. Then after Oberon has pushed that thing down the hill, Scott Free realizes that Mr. Miracle has been shot by a sniper. Then Mr. Miracle is laying on the ground next to Scott and tells him the act is finished and that he should have known Steel Hand wanted to kill him. He then tells Scott not to leave, but Scott tells Oberon he has to leave. But before he does, he takes his device from earlier and is able to use it to make Mr. Miracle die without pain. Then Oberon is crying at the loss of his friend, and Scott decides he is going to avenge him. Then we cut to the bad guys, where Steel Hand's lackey has brought in a big robot to test his hand's strength. He arm wrestles the robot and ends up destroying it. He declares that nothing can stop his hand. Then in comes Mr. Miracle, who is actually Scott Free. Steel Hand is shocked to see him and declares he is dead. Scott declares, "The age of miracles isn't over yet, Steel Hand." Then Scott Free throws his lackey and tells Steel Hand he doesn't care about the money, that he just cares about the bet they made. He then tells Steel Hand he bets he can perform his newest act, and that if he wins said bet, he will have to write a written confession saying he tried to have him killed. But then Steel Hand pushes the security button on the desk, and come a bunch of guards with guns and silly purple outfits. The guards gas Scott instead of destroying him. Then Steel Hand arrogantly tells his guards he is making that bet with him. Then we cut to this scene where the guards are in a bunker next to a missile launching site. They then tie Scott to the missile. Then the countdown of 10 seconds happens. The countdown ends and the missile heads up into the sky. Steel Hand declares he is dead and he takes his hat off to anyone that can survive dying twice. Then the missile blows up in the sky in front of all the bad guys. Then we cut inside Steel Hand's office where Steel Hand sees Scott in his Mr. Miracle costume sitting at his desk. He then declares to Scott he will kill him with his steel hand. He starts destroying everything in his office, but Scott moves too fast for him. He declares to Steel Hand he put hyper sound intensifiers into his gloves to destroy the chains. Then Scott tells him how he escaped the rocket, and I love this silly image of Steel Hand covered in what looks like bed sheets. Such a funny image. Steel Hand admits that his steel hand can't function now. Scott then declares he got into his office using air jets on his feet. Then Oberon and some SWAT cops come in. Oberon compliments Scott, saying he made it here in perfect time. So the comic ends with Steel Hand being arrested by the cops and Scott saying to Oberon they will now be part of Mr. Miracle Super Escape Artist.
This comic is very good, and Jack Kirby was just such a master at drawing, and the artwork, of course, is just so magnificent. Anyway, next time we're gonna look at a what if comic of Spider-Man if he never became a crime fighter. And I'm doing that because it will be the anniversary episode. I'll have done this for a whole year. See you then.
forgot to mention that Steel Hand looks a lot like Dr. Octopus. I had forgotten to put that into the review.